Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by. I want to make two important announcements before we get into the video. Number one, I will continue making my weekly reviews of guns or firearm related products, things like that. In between those reviews, I do want to provide more content for y'all, so I am going to be taking on the Second Amendment news community, where I will be discussing topics and sharing some news with you that I think should be on your radar when it comes to the Second Amendment. So, all right, let's get into it. So this is out of the great state of Michigan. This is with U.S. Representative Alyssa Slotkin with the 8th Congressional District. She wants to introduce the act Safe Guns, Safe Kids Act. The act reads as follows. For gun owners to safely secure firearms in living situations in which children could access the weapons. It would also impose a penalty of up to 5 years in imprisonment if a child accesses a firearm and injures himself or others as a result. Now, this comes 3 weeks after the Oxford school shooting. If you haven't heard about that, a monster decided to take a firearm to school and shoot multiple people, killing 4 and injuring 7 others, including a teacher. Now, there are some important things I want to point out when it comes to this shooting in regards to why Slotkin is introducing this law. Number one is the fact that his parents, the shooter's parents, purchased this SIG 9mm for their son for a Christmas present. Now, this is according to their social media posts and them boasting on social media that this was a present for their son. Number two is they kept this firearm in an unsecure drawer in their bedroom. So he had access to this 24/7. There was no locks or anything like that. It was just open for the taking. Number three is the fact that they purchased this firearm knowing that their son had a lot of red flags when it came to his interactions at school. He had a lot of drawings. He said a lot of things. He wrote down things that were extremely concerning that the school staff was aware of, and it was brought to their attention when it comes to harming other people, drawings of people being hurt. Unfortunately, I think this was not to take responsibility away from him. He is a monster and he chose to do this, but there was failures on multiple levels here when it comes to the parents, first of all, purchasing a firearm knowing their son had these issues. Number two, with the school staff really kind of not taking action, a more proactive step when they found out that he did have these tendencies and was, searching ammo online at school during class. Not only that, combined with the things he was drawing and saying at school. So those are important things I do want to point out, and I think this is a very important aspect of this law, because what it's showing immediately to us responsible gun owners when it comes to firearms and anyone in your household, especially children, is the fact that that is extremely irresponsible. Immediately they are irresponsible gun owners. It puts them in the category of irresponsible, negligent gun owners that do not deserve to be anywhere near a firearm, let alone their son. They should not be around firearms. So that's one thing I want to point out. So I do want to quote Slotkin here on why she's introducing this bill and her thought, or this bill, excuse me, this law, and why she's introducing this and her thoughts on gun ownership. So I quote, this is Slotkin, "I grew up in a gun-owning family. I carried a Glock and a M4 when I was on my 3 tours in Iraq as a CIA officer. My dad is a gun owner. I have no problem with responsible gun ownership. Michigan has millions of responsible gun owners." Keep that in mind, it's very important. Michigan has millions of responsible gun owners. "But this law was drafted so that if you have a weapon and there's a reasonable expectation that there's going to be a child in the home, that you have to keep it secure." It's not like us responsible gun owners don't already do that, but okay. To keep it secure, and that there are lots of ways to do that. So this brings up an important question, and these questions I'm going to ask, probably I think there's 3 or 4 questions I'm going to ask here, and those questions I would really like if you guys can discuss those in the comments and give me your thoughts, logical, try not to respond out of emotion, just some logical responses, your thoughts on what she is saying here. One of the things that I came up with when I was reading this is, do tragedies, mass shootings like that justify more gun laws? Or is it an infringement on the Second Amendment? Does it does it justify more gun laws? Does mass shootings or irresponsible gun ownership justify the making of more laws? That's the first question I want you guys to discuss, if you can, in the comments. Okay, I'm going to go on and quote her, second part of her thoughts here. It says, quote, "Whether you're a gun owner or not, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I think most people feel it's reasonable to say parents should keep guns away from children. In an irresponsible manner, absolutely. To keep guns away from children, I don't want to get ahead of it. Let me finish here. It's a child safety issue, not a Second Amendment issue." Here's where my second question comes in. Is this a child safety issue and not a Second Amendment issue, or is this a Second Amendment issue? Are gun laws Second Amendment issues here? Or is she pulling on the heartstrings of individuals trying to say, if you don't go for this law, you're against protecting the children? So that's an important question. Is this a Second Amendment issue? Slotkin goes on to say, quote, "Adding that single individuals would still be able to keep unlocked guns in their homes, so as long as they do not have children staying with them." Okay, so let me just elaborate on this really quick. As responsible gun owners, we already established that these individuals were not responsible gun owners at all. As responsible gun owners, we know that obviously education for our children is extremely important. Educating them on gun safety, what happens if they do find a loaded firearm, what are they supposed to do? So education when it comes to firearm safety is essential when it comes to children. And obviously, as a responsible gun owner with children, I do not leave my firearms unattended out in the open with my children around. I just don't do it. If it's on me, if I have my gun, it's on me. It's on my person. If it's not on my person, it's going to be locked in my safe in a secured area in my home. For people who don't have kids and don't have anyone living with them, it's a different story. That's your home. There's no kids roaming around. Now, when you leave the house and someone breaks in, if you're going to leave it out, that's probably not the smartest thing. But as far as you being home, people being around, keeping that firearm secure unless it's on your persons is what we know this as responsible gun owners. It takes the people like that who are not responsible, irresponsible gun owners, that these things happen, these tragedies happen. Not to say that this monster, shouldn't be responsible for this. It's his responsibility. He chose to take the firearm, but as a result of irresponsible parents and gun ownership, this tragedy was able to take place. So another question I have, would this have been prevented with this law in place? If, let's say, this law was on the books prior to this shooting, would the parents have stopped? Not that we can, read their minds, but it's important to ask this question. Would this law have prevented this? When people are intent on doing other people harm, they find a way, just how some people are. There's evil people out there that do those things regardless of the laws on the books. So the question is, would this law have prevented this? I don't think it would have. It probably wouldn't have. The parents are not going to stop and think, you know what, there's a law in the books. We'll get 5 years in prison if we decide to purchase this firearm and leave it out in the open for our son. We probably shouldn't purchase this firearm. It's just, these were irresponsible, horrific people, and I don't think this law would have prevented. What are your thoughts? Do you think these laws, people stop and think, and do you think these individuals stopped and thought, you know what, is there any laws in the books that can get us in trouble for purchasing this and leaving it unsecure in our home? Another thing I want to point out here before you go into the comments and discuss this is, what about education? These representatives who are supposed to represent the people and the Constitution, they're constantly running to laws. It's their go-to. It's their appeal. They try to appeal to the masses or to the people that are voting for them, instead of education. What about education? What about creating an education program, maybe for mental health issues in the school, creating a stronger and better program for people who have mental health issues, who are showing red flags and concerns of doing other people harm, doing themselves harm? How about creating programs for that? How about programs for educating the youth on firearm safety, firearm handling, what to do if they find out firearm, things like that? There's zero initiative for these people to step up and say, hey, let's create a program, let's create education, instead of let's create more restrictions and laws that obviously do not work. So That's another thing I want to point out is these people need to figure their stuff out and realize that educating people is by far more impactful than just creating these laws that sit on books that people who are intent on doing other people's harm could care less about. So those are some points I have. Please discuss them in the comments below. It's just something I want to be on, wanted to be on your guys' radar that's coming out of Michigan. Because these things, they will bleed into other states. Look at California. Their laws, they start in California in these restrictive states and they start to bleed out to these other states. So just try to have some meaningful conversations there when it comes to these questions or your thoughts on this law altogether that she is trying to introduce. So thanks guys for watching this video. I look forward to making more of this content and just sharing with you some of the Second Amendment news out there or topics related to the Second Amendment and having fruitful conversations about them in the comments section. All right guys, I will catch you all in the next one. Take care and God bless.